Imagine this. You wake up one morning, not to the sound of an alarm clock, but to an unsettling silence. The world outside your window looks the same. The streets hum with the rhythm of daily life, people rushing to jobs they despise, scrolling through screens that dictate their emotions, drowning in routines they never questioned. But something is different. For the first time, you see it. Not the world itself, but the invisible chains wrapped around it. The man in the business suit, gripping his coffee like a lifeline. He's not free. The mother hurrying her child to school, glancing at the time with anxious eyes. She's not free. The artist, once full of passion, now crafting soulless work to appease the algorithm. He's not free either. You step outside, looking for someone, anyone, who walks without weight, who breathes without burden. You see smiles, laughter, conversation, but beneath it, the same quiet resignation. And then you feel it. Your own chains, the ones you never noticed before. You were born into them, shaped by them, taught to call them life. The expectations, the fears, the silent rules of existence that dictate who you are, what you do, and what you believe is possible. The irony? You never thought to question them, because that's how perfect control works, not through force, but through invisibility. But here's the paradox that twists like a knife in the gut. Everyone believes they are free. Society screams freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of speech, freedom to become anything you want. But if that were true, why do so few escape mediocrity? Why do so many live the same script? Go to school, get a job, buy a house, retire, without ever considering another path. If freedom were real, why do billions remain trapped in lives that feel more like survival than living? What if the greatest trick ever played on humanity wasn't oppression, but the illusion of freedom? Think about it. If you chain a man to a wall, he will fight, resist, rage against his captor. But if you convince him the wall is all there is, that struggling is foolish, that outside the wall is nothing but chaos, he will never try to escape. He will build a life against that wall, decorate it, raise children beside it, and teach them to do the same. And if you go to him and whisper, "You're not free," he will laugh in your face. Because to him, that wall isn't a prison. It's reality. So now, ask yourself, what if everything you've been told about life, about success, happiness, purpose, was designed not to set you free, but to keep you in place? What if your thoughts, desires, and fears were never truly yours to begin with? What if the world doesn't need force to control you, because you've already been programmed to control yourself? And the most terrifying question of all, if you're not free, would you even want to be? Because here's the cruelest truth. Most people don't. And the reason why? That's what we're about to uncover. They tell you that you are free because you can choose. Choose your career. Choose your beliefs. Choose your entertainment, your relationships, your identity. But have you ever wondered, who decided the menu? Who placed the options before you and told you these are the choices? You were given a life to pick from, not a life to create. The hidden chains, why most people will never be free. The real prison isn't built of iron bars or locked doors. It's built inside the mind. It begins the moment they tell you that you are free because you can choose. Choose your career. Choose your beliefs. Choose your entertainment, your relationships, your identity. But have you ever wondered, who decided the menu? Who placed the options before you and told you these are the choices? You were given a life to pick from, not a life to create. The hidden chains, why most people will never be free. The real prison isn't built of iron bars or locked doors. It's built inside the mind. It begins the moment. That future is now. Look around. Society doesn't need whips or shackles to keep you in line. It gives you entertainment to keep you distracted. It gives you consumerism to keep you chasing. It gives you fear to keep you obedient. And the most brilliant trick of all, it convinces you that you are free while doing it. The illusion of choice. Take a moment and think about the life laid out before you. From the time you were a child, what were you told? Go to school, work hard, get a degree. Fine. There's a reason people cling to their chains. It's not because they love suffering. It's because they fear freedom. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that true freedom is terrifying because it means you have no excuses. If you're truly free, there is no system to blame, no authority to fall back on, no predetermined path to follow. You are alone with your choices, your consequences, and your existence. And that level of responsibility is unbearable for most. This is why people stay in toxic relations. Your opinions? Shaped by the media, tailored to fit the agenda of those in power. Your fears? Conditioned from childhood, ensuring that you never stray too far from what is acceptable. You are a puppet, and the strings are so subtle, so deeply woven into your identity that you do not even feel them pulling. And that is the brilliance of it. The most effective form of control is the one that makes people police themselves. You don't need a dictator to tell you what to do. You do it yourself. You censor yourself. You conform. You stay in your place because the world has taught you that stepping outside the lines will bring punishment, exile, or failure. And so, you remain. Most people will never be free. Not because they can't be, but because they won't be. Because true freedom requires the courage to destroy everything you thought you knew. The question is, are you ready for that? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, open landscape. No walls, no barriers, nothing holding you back. You could run in any direction, create any life you desire, become anything you choose. And yet, you don't move. Not because you can't, but because something deep inside you whispers, stay. This is the invisible prison that holds most people captive. A prison so perfectly designed that the prisoners defend it. They laugh at those who try to escape. They attack those who question it. They call their chains reality and mock those who dare to dream beyond them. But what does this prison do to a person? What happens when a human being spends their entire life unknowingly enslaved? There's a moment, subtle, almost imperceptible, when a person stops being alive and starts merely existing. It happens when they surrender their curiosity for comfort, when they trade their passion for practicality, when they tell themselves, this is just the way things are. At that moment, something inside them withers. Look into the eyes of a child, and you will see fire. Wonder, the raw hunger to know, to explore, to create. Look into the eyes of most adults, and you will see something else. Dullness, a quiet exhaustion, the slow decay of dreams abandoned. Most people do not live. They simply function, and they call it normal. But is it normal to wake up each morning dreading the day ahead? To work jobs that bring no meaning? To fill the silence with distractions because true reflection is too painful? To feel deep down that something is missing without ever knowing what? This is not life. This is slow motion death. And the worst part? Most people will never even realize it. Why don't people break free? Why don't they rebel? Why don't they shatter the illusions and reclaim their lives? Because fear has been woven into them since birth. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But the greatest fear of all? The fear of being truly responsible for themselves. Think about it. If you step outside the system, if you reject the script given to you, then everything falls on you. Your success, your survival, your happiness. There is no one to blame, no structure to rely on, no pre-written path to follow. That kind of freedom is terrifying. And so, most people cling to their cages. They call it security. They tell themselves that stepping beyond the lines is reckless, foolish, even dangerous. They convince themselves that those who break away are lucky or special. Anything to avoid admitting that they too could have chosen differently. Because to admit that, it would mean accepting that they spent their entire lives imprisoned by nothing but an illusion. What controls you is not what you see, but what you believe. The greatest wars are not fought with guns or armies. They are fought in the mind. They are fought in the ideas you accept, the fears you inherit, the beliefs you never question. Why do you think governments invest billions in propaganda? Why do corporations spend unimaginable sums on advertising? Why does the media flood you with narratives, shaping what you fear, what you love, what you chase? Because whoever controls your mind controls you. They do not need to force you into submission. They only need to make you believe that submission is natural. And so, the average person moves through life never realizing that their desires are not theirs. Their dreams are not theirs. Even their fears are not theirs. They're the echoes of a system designed not to free them, but to keep them useful. Work hard, make money, buy things, chase success. This is what you are told freedom looks like. But look at the people who have everything, the wealth, the status, the power. Are they free? Or are they just as trapped, just as desperate, just as lost, only in a bigger cage? The system doesn't care if you are rich or poor. It only cares that you remain obedient, that you keep playing the game, that you never Under any circumstances, walk away and say, I refuse to be controlled. Because the moment you do, you become dangerous. You become unpredictable. You become truly free. But here's the brutal truth. Most people will never do it, because breaking free isn't just about escaping the system. It's about destroying the part of yourself that has been conditioned to need it. And very few are willing to do that. So the question is, are you? Imagine waking up tomorrow with no past, no name, no history, no identity that ties you to who you were yesterday. For a brief moment, you're nobody, free from expectation, free from responsibility, free from the invisible chains that have dictated your every move. What would you do? Would you follow the same routine? Would you chase the same goals? Would you fear the same things? Or would you finally start living as if your life belonged to you? Because here's the truth. The only thing standing between you and freedom is you. The system does not hold you captive. It only hands you the script. You're the one who follows it. You are the one who obeys. You're the one who tells yourself, this is just the way things are. But that is a lie. And now, it's time to burn the script. The easiest way to control a person is to make them never question the world they live in. So let's start with a simple but dangerous question. What if everything you believe about life is wrong? What if success isn't what you think it is? What if happiness isn't what you've been told? What if the things you fear are the very things that could set you free? These questions are uncomfortable. They strip away the illusions you've spent a lifetime clinging to. But if you're too afraid to ask them, then you're already lost. You're already owned. And the first act of rebellion is refusing to be owned. Freedom does not begin with a grand revolution. It begins with a single word. No. No to the expectations that suffocate you. No to the fears that were never yours to begin with. No to the invisible rules that keep you docile and weak. You do not owe the system your obedience. You do not owe society your conformity. You do not owe anyone the right to dictate the course of your life. And yet, most people are terrified to say no, because saying no means taking responsibility. It means you can no longer blame the world for your choices. It means you must create your own path instead of following the one given to you. But here's the secret they never tell you. Once you start saying no to the things that imprison you, you finally have room to say yes to the things that set you free. Fear is the invisible leash that keeps people in place. But here's what they don't want you to know. Fear is not a prison. It is a compass. Whatever you fear most, that is where your freedom lies. Fear of failure? That means success has been defined for you by others. Redefine it. Fear of rejection? That means your identity depends on external approval. Break free from it. Fear of the unknown? That means you have spent too long clinging to comfort instead of possibility. Step into it. The moment you stop running from fear and start running toward it, something incredible happens. The leash snaps, and suddenly, you realize that you were never truly bound. Some people think escaping means quitting their job, moving to another country, or cutting off society entirely. But physical escape is meaningless if your mind is still trapped. You could live alone in the mountains, away from all control, and still be a slave to fear, regret, or social conditioning. True escape is not about where you go. It's about how you think. It's about breaking free from the psychological chains that make you obedient, fearful, and dependent. It's about realizing that no one, not your government, not your employer, not even your past, has power over you unless you give it to them. Escape begins the moment you decide, I will no longer be ruled. So what does it mean to be free? It does not mean wealth. Wealth can be taken. It does not mean power. Power can be lost. It does not even mean happiness. Happiness comes and goes. Freedom is something deeper, something unshakable. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a world designed to break you and say, I choose my own path. I obey no master. I belong to no one but myself. Most people will never reach this point, but you're already closer than you think. And now, only one question remains. Will you take the final step? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast abyss. Behind you is everything you have ever known. The world of rules, expectations, and invisible chains. The life you were given, not the life you chose. The identity you inherited, not the one you created. Ahead of you, nothing. Pure, terrifying emptiness. No path, no safety net, no instructions, just infinite possibility. Most people, when they reach this moment, step back. They tell themselves, I can't do this. I don't know what's out there. It's safer to stay where I am. And so they retreat. They return to their routines, their distractions, their cages. But a few, the rare, the courageous, take the step forward. And when they do, they realize something most will never understand. The abyss was never real. It was just fear disguised as reality. Everything you have been told about life, about success, happiness, and meaning is a carefully constructed illusion. Your education taught you to obey, not to think. Your job trained you to trade your time for money, not to create value. Your society convinced you that freedom means choosing between pre-approved options, not forging your own path. And yet, people defend this system. They fight for it. They build their entire identities around it. Why? Because the truth is too unsettling. The truth that nothing has inherent meaning. Accept what you assign to it. The truth that no one is coming to save you, because no one holds the power to grant you freedom except yourself. The truth that everything you fear, failure, rejection, uncertainty, is a fiction designed to keep you compliant. Most will never accept this, because to accept it means taking full responsibility for their existence. And responsibility is terrifying. Here is the most powerful truth you will ever hear. You are not a prisoner. You never were. You were never bound by society, never controlled by the system, never trapped by the past. The only thing that ever kept you enslaved was your own mind. Your fear of what others think. Your addiction to certainty. Your belief that you needed permission to live freely. But the moment you see this, truly see it, something shatters inside you. The illusion dissolves. You realize that every wall you thought was a prison was just a shadow on the wall. Every rule you followed was just a suggestion. Every limit was self-imposed. And in that moment, you experience something most people never will. True, absolute freedom. But here's the paradox. Most people do not want to be free. They say they do. They dream of it. They fantasize about escape. But when given the choice between a comfortable cage and an uncertain freedom, they choose the cage. Because freedom has a cost. It means giving up the comforting illusion of certainty. It means taking full responsibility for your failures. It means standing alone with no authority to tell you what to do next. And that kind of freedom, most people are not ready for it. But you, if you have made it this far, if you have felt the weight of these words and sensed the truth within them, then maybe, just maybe, you are. So now we arrive at the ultimate moment, not in some distant future, not after another book, another video, another excuse. Right here, right now, because there are only two choices. Step forward into the unknown, or stay behind and pretend you never saw the door. No one will force you. No one will judge you. No one will stop you. Because the truth is, and has always been, this: you are already free. The only question is whether you will claim it. And that choice is yours.